Okay, welcome to Brewhaha. Go ahead. I'm doing a local recording of this as well as the online one because my frame rate's jumping all over the place. But anyway, yeah, sorry. So welcome. We here are typically we discuss homebrews for D&D 5th edition. That's what we do. That's what we're gonna be doing.
What we do.
Today specifically we'll be discussing weaponry and some changes I would make to that. A few disclaimers. One, if you are a first-time DM or an inexperienced DM, don't go just piling on extra rules for stuff into your game. Keep it simple. Like, you may see these things, but that'd be neat.
KISS.
Yes.
Keep it simple, stupid.
You might see some of these things and be like, oh, that's neat, I want to do that. Well, don't. We've played long enough, and we're also the kind of people that like to get into some of the like nitty-gritty mathematics of it, that this is something we enjoy. Certainly not for everybody, especially if you're playing like an RP heavy campaign. You don't need to do this stuff. It's just kind of enjoyable. Let's see, is there anything else? No, that being said, I think we're about ready to get in on this. I guess, Logan, do you have any opening thoughts about how weapons are handled in the D&D 5th edition system?
Oh, I don't know. I think for the most part they're okay. They're pretty simple. The rules for weapons. I mean, they're pretty.
Yeah.
It's basically just this is how much damage a weapon deals, and that's pretty much it. There's a few things that add a little bit of flavor to it, like reach or the heavy attribute. But for the most part, they're very, very straightforward.
There are two weapon categories in the game, basically. There are simple, and then there are martial weapons. Older editions and other games have like exotic weapons or specified, some sort of specific weapons. I guess 5th edition also has monk weapons, but that's just weapons with which a monk is proficient. They're not like a separate weapon category. So it's pretty stock simple. There are, let's see, there is, the only things that really matter, there are like one or two weapons, there are exactly two weapons that have the special modifier, which are special rules. The lance, which, that special rule means you have disadvantage on attacks within 5 feet of you, and you have to hold it with two hands unless you're mounted. And the net, which just has rules on like restraining a target with it for a very low DC based on the weapon and not based on your character skill at all. A level 1 character and a level 20 character have the same escape DC from a net. Then there are, the bows do have a slight thing where long bows, I believe, are heavy. And some weapons are heavy, and that just basically means halflings can't use them. Small creatures can't use them. Versatile weapons can be held in 1 or 2 hands, and that changes your damage dice. But that's really... And there are a couple reach weapons that have a range of 10 feet instead of 5 feet. Nothing crazy. And a lot of weapons are just exactly the same as other weapons, except maybe the damage type is different. I'm trying to think, like, hand axe... Or those can be thrown. There are some weapons here. A battle axe, a flail, just deal 1d8. Longsword 1d8. Morningstar 1d8. It just maybe changes the damage type a little bit. Kind of boring. So I wanted to add some stuff that was non-magical weaponry into the game that adds some kind of additional flavor and effects. And all of this is based on real life weaponry, although maybe not used in the correct historical context or anything, but just like some cool stuff. So let's start off here. Boom. We got this thing here. I did not show Logan any of these in advance, so he's seeing them also for the first time.
Boom.
This
Stabby
is,
boy.
And I'm going to be mispronouncing a lot of these names because a lot of these weapon names are French, and I speak less than no French. But this is a rondelle, or rondel. It's a type of dagger that is specifically designed for like piercing chainmail. It's just, there's no like cross guard on it. It's just a rounded pommel, and it's basically a big ice pick. It's just a thin, hard blade you can use to try to pierce through chain. Because in D&D, there are two light weapons essentially rogues will use, either a short sword or a dagger, and that's, I mean, pretty plain. What if you want to switch it up a little bit? This is kind of a fun little option, because essentially it's a dagger, but it's designed to pierce chain, so I would give it like a modifier when attacking something in chain, whether it be chainmail or chain shirt or whatever. Give it an extra to hit, because your attacks that do make contact are more likely to pierce armor and deal damage.
Yeah, I like that.
That being said, it probably would lose the thrown property because of its shape is not really conducive to throwing. A long, thin blade isn't really good for, going end over end at something.
Yeah.
But give it, a +2 against attacks on chain or chainmail targets.
Yeah, I like that. There is also a fighting style that they were using, I think in like the 16th-ish century, which specifically involved using a dagger as well as a sword. I don't know, maybe you've got a picture of this too, but...
Actually, the next slide is something that would be used in that specific
okay, cool.
instance. Yeah. But yeah, a lot of... you would have your main hand weapon, and then you have an offhand parrying dagger, which you wouldn't necessarily use this weapon for that because it doesn't have a crossguard or any way to block. This is more of a get in and just one big punch kind of through. But I would give this bonuses to attacks against chain specifically, and it obviously for an offset it would be a little more expensive or and not be able to be thrown. But I want to give the characters an option to go out and pick up gear specifically for a job. Like if they've done their research, I want them to be able to apply that in a way that'll benefit them. So if they're like, okay, we're breaking into the castle and all of these guards have chainmail on, we need a weapon to deal with chainmail. Let's get some of these bad boys. That's kind of the vibe I was going for when I was looking at some of this stuff. But as Logan was mentioning, a lot of times you'll see a sword breaker held in the offhand. Usually they're not this elaborate, and it's either this or what do they call the main gouge, which are daggers that have notches in the crossguard meant to catch a blade. These are offhand like parrying daggers that you would use to catch and pull a blade out of your way. They wouldn't actually break swords unless it was like a very thin sword, but they were meant to stop attacks and...
Yeah, they were essentially like to be used in lieu of a shield while adding a short-ranged, easily withdrawn or drawn weapon. So you could be quick into battle. It wouldn't be nearly as long process as drawing out a huge long sword. You could just quickly pull it out from its sheath. You're ready to fight.
That being said, someone rushes at you with a claymore, you're not going to pull out a sword breaker on them because it will just destroy your wrist when they swing at you. Yeah. This is much more of like a swashbuckling style weapon. But I do like very much the having the option, because 2-weapon fighting is something every character gets. You don't need to take a feat or anything for it. But there aren't really any good benefits to it except one attack that deals at most like a d6 damage, right? If you're 2-weapon fighting with a short sword. I like the idea of being able to 2-weapon fight and then using the parrying dagger to either as a reaction. There already is a reaction in the game called parry that adds +2 to AC for a hit. It's either +2 or +5 for one strike. I don't remember exactly.
I think it depends on where you're getting it from. I think there are some monsters that have the parry reaction that's either +2, +3, or +5. And then I think, like you said, I think it's a feat, right, that you can get it from? Or is it just a fighter?
It's a fighting combat maneuver, I believe.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I think that's... I don't remember what that is. It might be plus... 3?
I guess I could look it up real quick. But I like the idea of giving a lot of this is giving martial characters utility, because martial characters fall off behind caster characters just due to the fact that they don't have the utility.
Yeah.
So giving them an ability to attack and then use a reaction to parry and defend themselves in some way, or even potentially a chance to disarm, depending on how you want to run it.
Yeah. And I think it's kind of important to point out that this isn't necessarily an idea that's coming out of nowhere. There is precedent in the game already in the form of, the only thing I can think of is Shocking Grasp, where you get advantage on your attacks if somebody's wearing, I think it's metal armor.
Yes.
So there are some mechanics in the game, that's the only one I can think of off the top of my head, that affect or that have an ability or an attack that is augmented based on what your opponent is wearing.
Mm-hmm. Actually, so the parry that the fighter gets, whenever another creature damages you with a melee attack, you can use your reaction to expend a superiority die and reduce the damage based on what you roll plus your dex modifier. So it doesn't actually block an attack, is the fighter maneuver. It does for creatures, though.
Interesting.
Yeah. But I know it feels like you're taking a lot from a Battlemaster fighter by giving weapons maneuvers, but at the same time, the ability to do that and maybe play something that's not a Battlemaster fighter and still get some of these maneuvers really opens up your options.
Yeah, like a lot of things that you would homebrew, you probably wouldn't want to use this if you had a Battlemaster fighter in your party, because that would just kind of make them feel like part of their kit was a little redundant. But if you don't have a Battlemaster fighter in your party, then nobody really is going to notice.
Yeah, and maybe your Battlemaster has some, like we said, the parry to parries that it reads in monsters gives you additional armor class. The parry it reads for the fighters reduces damage. Those aren't exclusive, so even if you have a Battlemaster, you can just be sure to look at the party you have before you implement anything like this. You don't want a character to feel completely redundant. But I like the idea of it giving you a parry reaction. Not a lot of classes have good reactions, like wizards and sorcerers for the shield and rogues for uncanny dodge,
which are fantastic reactions.
Yes, the reactions that are in the game, very good. There are very few reactions in the game that people can take.
Featherfall, situationally amazing.
But like if you're playing a ranger that's using blades, or any fighter that's not the Battlemaster, your reactions are pretty limited in most scenarios. So the ability to add a reaction, changing the action economy entirely, but giving your characters something to like feel like they're doing, I like a lot.
Yeah.
So
from like thinking about it, like you do magic, how there's so many phases of combat. In D&D, you basically have action, bonus action, reaction, and movement. Most players, like you mentioned, don't really get a reaction that's particularly, like some of them don't get any, really, except for opportunity attack. And there are a lot of people who that's like not really what they would want to do with their reaction. Yeah. So just adding more options, I think, is just, I don't know, just probably more fun.
No. That's another thing, though, is more options is great for people that have played for a little bit. Probably not something you want to throw in right off the bat. But, a lot of times an attack of opportunity for most characters is, one weapon damage. Not one damage, but one damage from a swing of a weapon. And by the time you're a, 15th level fighter, you're swinging 5 times a turn. That's nothing. Like, you want to have the ability to do some other kind of cool stuff. So I do think Sword Breakers is kind of an offhand. Also, as a trade-off, you can't wear a shield if you have something in your offhand, as well as a caster needs an open hand to cast. So this is a good way to benefit a character that wouldn't like rogues. Not that they would really take the reaction, probably, but or a fighter that doesn't want to use a shield and doesn't want to use a two-handed. It gives some options, some flavor to things. So let's take a look at what we got next. For people that do want to use a shield, this is just a big spiked shield. It's a regular big shield with a big spike in the middle. Because the game does have if you take the shield master feat, it gives you a shield bash to knock people down. But I'm thinking there's no reason you can't use like a 2-weapon fighting style thing to stab someone with a spike shield.
Yeah. I think there's a stat block for a monster. I think it's like a gladiator or something that has a spiked shield.
Oh, perhaps. I did
attack.
I did not pull that up.
I think it's one of like the humanoid, like extra stat block things. Like I think maybe it's called gladiator or some sort of like arena fighter. I don't know. But yeah, there's something I vaguely remember that at least has a shield bash as part of its attack.
Gladiators do have a shield bash as part of their multi-attack.
Nice.
And
thought they'd had a spike, but maybe not.
It doesn't have a spike, but it deals damage as well as knocks prone.
Gotcha.
So it doesn't necessarily say it has a spike, but yeah. So essentially, just like add a shield bash attack action is like if you're making a multi-attack, allow one of those attacks to be a spike shield bash to deal some physical damage and potentially knock down or knock back.
Yeah, I think it could possibly even be really interesting. So if you didn't want to do like the knock down thing, which is kind of already, you said that's part of the shield mastery.
Mm-hmm.
So you could do if you can make one of those attacks as part of your multi-attack. For the next attack, you could have like a stagger mechanic where if that attack hits, then just the next attack on it has advantage that you make, because it's like a hit kind of staggers them back, kind of opens up their guard a little bit, gives you an advantage attack. I think that could be a fun little thing for
open with the shield bash, and if you succeed on the shield bash, then you get a bonus for your next attack. That totally, it adds a little bit more tactical play to than just, okay, I have a +2 to armor class and this arm has something on it now. It's a little more, it feels more dynamic. And it's not like you're adding power anywhere to the character, really. You're just
right. And I would even augment the shield attack to be so it's a little bit of a risk reward if you wanted to take that shield bash attack. So it's like maybe a lower chance of hitting with lower damage, but then on your next attack, if you hit with it, then you get advantage on your main weapon attack.
Or just, you could even make it simple. If you hit with the attack, you have advantage on your next attack. If you miss with the attack, you don't have your shield bonus till the start of your next turn because your shield is knocked away. So just a lesser version of like raging, or but like reckless attacking. Sure. Something like that. There's tons of stuff you could do with it, but I do think like a spike shield is something that should be implemented.
Yeah,
it's a pretty neat idea. Next, we got a Lucerne. Now, there are some pole weapons already in the game. Basically, a Lucerne is just like a halberd, but instead of an axe blade on it, it's got a hammer.
I do love halberds.
Yeah,
fantastic weapons.
Essentially, all I would say about this is the same way I said the rondelle would pierce chain, this would work on plate armor, because that's what this is designed for.
Crushing
It's designed. That's what these cool little points are for on it. Is designed to just put as much impact force as you can into an area and just crush in plate.
Nice.
So either give them a bonus to hit on people plate, or maybe even bonus damage, or maybe even a chance to stagger or slow them because their armor's being physically, bent inward. There's tons of stuff you could add to it. You don't want to add anything too crazy powerful, but then again, fighting someone in plate armor is not super common in most scenarios. So it depends on what your party's running against. But giving your guy the ability to be like, oh, we're fighting a bunch of knights, I'm going to get a hammer to smack them.
Yeah. Do you have a halberd in this list too? That we'll
I
talk
don't,
about,
because halberds are in the actual list.
Okay, well, one thing that I was thinking about with halberds is that I don't believe they have this anywhere. I'll double check.
They have heavy reach and two-handed are their keywords.
Okay, yes, so something that I thought was interesting, because halberds are specifically designed for foot soldiers against a mounted combatant, especially an armored mounted combatant. So I thought you were equipped with a halberd, it could give you some sort of advantage against a mounted person. Like perhaps you could use one of your attacks to try to dismount them.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of what that they're used for. It's like grabbing and hooking, pulling people down, and then using the axe as a finishing maneuver. They're also known as long bills, or that's just a different version of them. That's sort of like a farming tool. That's sort of I don't know if the origin, but that's, at least in England, that was like a variation that the peasants would use.
Yeah, definitely a weapon specifically, because you have the lance, which is a weapon specifically for mounted combat. No, in our campaigns we haven't had a lot of mounted combat, but that's definitely something that is a thing, and having a weapon specifically against mounted targets would be definitely feasible in that situation. I like that. But yeah, the Lucerne, I don't really have a lot more to say on it than the Rondel, except it's for a specific armor type. Like, it still will hurt someone in leather, but not the same effect, obviously, as crushing in a piece of metal.
Yeah. So when you crush in a giant piece of plate metal, you've left that giant piece of plate metal crushed into their body. Yeah. As opposed to just, like, perhaps cracking a rib. Yeah.
It definitely would have a over time deteriorating effect on someone in plate taking damage like that. Alright, these are super cool. These are called catch poles or man catchers, depending. And they are just collars on a stick that you use to grab someone. Seeing all these different weapons, visioning a fighter that carries around 10 different weapons and starts each fight and drops all but one that's most effective. A weapon master like that is kind of the character I want, is just someone who walks around with an armory, a weapon for every job.
Yeah. I don't know. Did you ever read, I believe this character is from the Shannara series. Did you ever read those books? Yes. There is like a weapon master in there. I think series. I might be confusing the character with the series, but he, like, his basically whole character story is that he's like mastered every weapon and he's just like bored. He's like Jax in League of Legends. He's just bored now, and so he just goes out to try to fight really powerful beings and creatures, just looking for something that can defeat him. I imagine he would have one of these. Oh yeah, he would have one of everything. God, it's been so long since I read those books. I'm pretty sure he fights like the 4 horsemen. I read them in middle school, I think. So it's been a good 15 or more years. Yeah, he's pretty dope, and I do like that idea. What I like about the catch pole is it adds a non-lethal way to deal with people. I mean, despite the spikes, it's meant to be non-lethal. Although it was originally meant to like snag people and drag them behind your horse to like capture people. So I'm assuming the spike one was not meant for that, because people don't really. You could capture and drag them behind your horse, but then that's kind of the end of that interaction. Yeah, but these little like mechanisms you see on the front are spring-loaded. So once that thing is hit, they pop out and it becomes like a one-way in. But I like the idea of giving this a weapon with reach that you can either use to club somebody for relatively low damage. I imagine they're not like a club, but grapple someone at range, and then they can't walk up to you to make an attack. Oh yeah. So you can hold someone have to make, like strength, contested strength checks. And there's the grapple rule where you can move at half your speed with the target grappled. So the same kind of thing applying, where like you can maneuver someone where you want them. And then they have to make a check to either break out of it or pull it away from you. So just kind of a less than lethal approach to combat you can use to
give a fighter a little bit of utility of locking somebody down while also not being in their melee range.
I think in the Lord of the Rings, I believe it's in Fellowship, in the Balin's Tomb fight, the goblins have something similar to this around the cave troll that they use to attack the heroes in Balin's Tomb. But theirs, I think, is like a breakaway one, because they like have them kind of like with them, and then they kind of and then release them. Fight the.
Oh, Logan,
So it
you're
could be a
breaking up for
variation.
me.
Oop.
Hold on, is your Discord popping off, or is it on my
Just
end?
froze for me. I don't know if that's my internet.
Uh-oh.
Oh no. Let's see what Discord says. Oh, it's
Oh.
okay now.
Yep, no, we got you back. Huh. Oh no, my frames keep popping in or dropping. I gotta get this internet thing figured out. That's why I'm recording locally, so I can still put something up.
It's in my internet too, for sure, because I'm dropping in and out, I think. Or my bars on Discord are dropping lower.
We do have a bad storm approaching, so it might be some weather taking effect. But yeah, like I was saying, I like the idea of a weapon that's not just for doing damage, but adds utility. Because normally, let's say you're a fighter, your option for pinning someone down are to literally tackle them, throw a net at them that has an escape DC of 10,
Ooh.
or for something, or I'd say like you can use this catch pole and hold them out of your arm's length, so they can't just stab you while you're holding them.
Yeah.
As well as you have the ability to maneuver them, and
Yeah. And you can make variations of it where you could make one to capture beasts or some sort of monsters, like trolls or
Get
giants
some-
would be tough. You'd have to be very strong. But
get a big one or an enchanted one, perhaps, that can use to pacify a creature and then grab them. But I like the idea of having a little bit of utility to take a threat out. Plus, like, if they're a ranged combatant or a wizard or something, they're gonna have a hell of a time making a shot or casting a spell while you're jerking them around by the neck.
Yeah.
So, a way to take someone out of a combat or make them way less effective without necessarily resorting to murder every time is sometimes nice.
it's nice to have that option. Obviously, you will murder,
Oh,
but it's good to know that you don't have to.
Well, because if a party sees both these hanging up in a storefront, which one of them are they going to buy?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So, take that with a grain of salt.
The torture device or the weird fishnet.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Speaking of ways to capture people non-lethally, we got bolas, which
Hey,
I like is just a kind of different version of the net, just being
are
able
those
to...
not in my game?
No.
Really?
No, net is the only, like... If they are, they're not in the player's handbook under...
Yeah, I don't see it.
Right?
Crazy.
But yeah, just a real simple, you make a ranged attack. If it hits somebody, they have to make a dex save or fall over, and if they succeed the dex save, that still has hit them, so they're going to have to do something to get rid of it before they can move again. A good way to hinder someone at a distance. I'd say, like a thrown weapon's typically 20, 30 feet.
Mm-hmm.
But just a good, because there you cannot deal non-lethal range damage in D&D. If you're dealing non-lethal damage, it has to be with a melee attack. So this gives you an option to catch someone without just shooting an arrow into their back and killing them.
And recap it.
Yeah. Plus, I like the last couple weapons can really give your character like a bounty hunter theme of taking people back alive. And I think that's kind of an interesting playstyle over just dealing as much damage as you can. I like the idea of non-lethal restraint as a mechanic that's not just I walk up and hit them until they're unconscious.
Yeah, it's always nice to have some sort of ranged subduing options.
Yeah. Oh, hi Ben. Hype indeed. You missed some good stuff, but
indeed.
don't worry, it'll all be going up on YouTube once I get
It's
it
on the
worked
tubes.
out. Yeah. All right. These are a little weirder. This is a Kasarigama, and
Fun.
they, like I said, monk weapons aren't really represented in the game. This is not really like it didn't see a lot of wide use. The way you use one of these things is you take the chain with the weight on the end, you spin it, and then you throw it at the enemy, and with the goal of catching their weapon and disarming them, and then or pulling them in, at which point you use the sickle to stab them. But
It seems like a very high risk, high reward weapon.
yeah, you can't really like. A lot of people can't use them at once. This is way more of a one-on-one combat weapon. And it, like I said, it's primarily meant to use to entangle or disarm a sword or spear. And the range isn't particularly far on these things, because it is a big weight on the end of a metal chain that you're throwing out. So, but I do like the idea of having a weapon that has some sort of CC effect, like a disarm or to give disadvantage on attacks by wrapping up a weapon, and then closing in with a sharpened, a sharpened weapon. Have to be careful you don't get pulled from them if they're stronger than you. Yeah, exactly. Would you consider a bolo arrow or something if shot from a bow, grappling at longer range? So, if you wanted,
Rangers have that like grappling shot, right? Or like a snaring shot.
They have ensnaring strike, yes, but it does still do the arrow's damage first, and then they're ensnared because you are still shooting them with an arrow.
True.
If you wanted to do a bolo arrow, I would say that's something you'd have to discuss with the DM, but I would say it probably has significantly less range than a regular arrow because it takes a lot of weight to do something like that.
I'd say that could be a magical item too, like
for
single-use magical item.
For magical items, you
definitely
you could stick a trap foot bag on an arrow and
yeah,
shoot somebody for sure.
I think that would be a good like single-use magic item where it's like an arrow. You fire it. After you fire it, then it turns into a bolo. And since it's magic, I think that could even give it a bit of extra range.
Yeah, for sure. If you're gonna add magic in the equation, I think that the bolo arrow is a great idea. Adding a ranged anti-lethal component is nice. I like the Kasarigama because they look cool. They're not, I don't think, incredibly practical, but I do like the idea of making some sort of striker check to give the opponent disadvantage on an attack, and then closing in and attacking. That way, as they're trying to struggle away from the chain, they're just stabbing them with this little sickle.
Yeah. I do like the idea of a high risk, high reward weapon. It makes me think of. Did you see that new Mortal Kombat movie?
I did not, unfortunately.
In the opening scene, it's kind of like the origin story for Scorpion. Is that his name? Scorpion.
Scorpion's
Get over
yellow.
here, guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of like the origin story for him, and he like uses like a little dagger tied to a rope.
Yeah.
And he like kicks it around. I know that's a real thing, and I don't remember what it's called. It makes me think of that, and that seems like something that
I think it's just called a rope dart.
Rope dart. It's really dope. It's the best part of that movie by far.
That's unfortunate because that is the scene I have seen because I saw it in the trailer.
I mean, you don't need to see any. The rest of it is not as good as that. That opening scene got me really hyped for that movie, and the rest of it was pretty disappointing comparatively. But yeah, I just love the idea of a weapon that is just like really like if you're very skilled at it, it's really good. But if you fuck it up a little bit, you completely fucked up.
Two things.
You don't have a weapon.
I do have something I want to talk about for that. I want to address Ben's comment real quick before I forget.
Gotcha.
He says, I don't know much about 5e. Wouldn't a one-use item mean you need to use magical device check? There is no use magical device check in 5th edition. That was a 3.5 in Pathfinder thing. Magic items are just used unless it's a scroll, at which point you have to make a check depending on some circumstances. And a kunai on a chain, yeah, that's basically what a rope dart is. So I listened to a podcast, a D&D podcast called Dungeons and Daddies, and they had a, it's not a BDSM podcast. They gave one of their characters nunchucks, because he just really wanted nunchucks. And they had a mechanic where you could make a performance check to flail your nunchucks, and every time you succeeded, you'd get a +1 on your to hit, and the difficulty of the check would go up. But as soon as you failed, you'd nut yourself with the nunchucks and just lose your attack.
Love it.
So it's a high risk, like, you can build up to a better chance to hit, but if you fail, you just nut yourself, and then...
I love it.
So, I do like something like that. Probably not with this, because, boy, that'd be way worse than nunchucks getting hit with.
Yeah,
but,
you might be out for a while.
Yeah.
Nut yourself with the tip of this thing.
But I do like that as a mechanic of a, high risk, high reward kind of thing. And I think this is a great weapon for that.
Critical fail is a circumcision.
Oof. Speaking of...
Self-circumcised.
So, I was mentioning earlier, monks don't have weapons, really. Most monks wouldn't actually want to pick up a weapon in most cases because their martial arts die goes up higher than it. But also then your monk, give your monk a magic item every now and then, Sometimes your monks want a weapon they can use. And this is a katar or a punch dagger, and that is essentially what this is for. But it also has one unique thing that other monk weapons don't really have is the damage you do with this weapon, IRL at least, is not based on how fancy your movement is, but just how hard you can raw punch. Because that's what it is. It's just a thick, flat blade you punch as hard as you can with. The strength of the weapon is just the strength of the full force of your arm. So if you wanted to make a strength monk, this is a weapon you could use. That just goes around...
slice method.
Yeah, it just goes around Superman punching people right in the chest with this cool dagger. Tim says, so they can make multiple checks on the same attack for multiple plus to the attack on the nunchucks? Yeah, they would essentially just make a check until he decided to make the attack or he failed. So, a plus, I think the first one was like a DC 5 for a +1 to hit, then DC 7 for a +2 to hit, and up and up and up until they eventually just nut themselves every time.
Great.
But I like this weapon because it gives you... one, it makes Strength Monk an option of just going around and being a brawler with this kind of weapon on. And then two, also if you want to give your monk some sort of enchanted item, this is a way you could do that. Some monks need a little bit of love too every now and then.
Yeah.
So...
And needing an enchanted item is how our monks' brass knuckles came about. Although I think they're adamantine.
They are adamantine. He paid extra for the knuckles he can use to break down walls, which was, in hindsight, we shouldn't have given him those.
Very important to him, though.
It did cause us to reverse ambush a set of ogres one time.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet.
But, also brass knuckles, cestises, other weapons like that, not in the game. I like to give monks a little something. In older versions, this would be called an exotic weapon, and you need a special proficiency for it. So if you want to add something like that in your game, if you want a non-monk to be able to use this to take a feat that gives them access to it, something like that, definitely throw that in. I just like the aesthetic of them. I like that it makes just strength monk a thing, and also it's just a delivery system for enchantments onto your monk. So pretty cool stuff all the way around. Alright, another monk weapon, because I felt monks were very underrepresented in the weapons. And this is just kind of a basic... They're tonfa, they're just clubs, essentially, that you hold on to that side protruding handle and they run along the arm. And then typically they all have a metal end you can use to punch with as well. But I like this just because I would give them to a monk and just give them the +2 armor class for wielding a shield. Because this is just monk shield. And I don't think monks can wield shields unless they're like Kensai monks specifically or something.
Yeah.
Monks are very limited in the kind of armaments they can use.
Mm-hmm.
And I just like giving, for someone that is a martial class, primarily, I like giving them a couple extra options to, hey, maybe your monk just wants to raise their AC a little bit. They can't wear armor. They can't use a shield. This would kind of give them a way to do that. And also, it would deal less damage than, say, a quarterstaff or another weapon that you'd see a monk using. But then it'd give you the bonus to AC.
Yeah.
Plus, they look dope.
That. They do look pretty cool. You look cool standing there holding them, even if you don't know how to use them.
Yeah. Tonfas are a pretty neat weapon, and I think, I don't know. I think I would just give them the flat plus 2 armor class. I don't think they really need anything else. Pretty good. So, let's see what else we got here. Oh boy. Oh boy. Guys, let me tell you about a scythe.
Oh.
In every freaking fiction, in all your anime and all your TV shows, you will see a character using a scythe as a weapon. So let's get some stats for a scythe. They're bad and they make me sad to see.
I mean, they're really good if you happen to be a grouping of blades of grass.
Even then, not that great.
Have you seen them? Have you seen those videos of people who actually know how to use them?
But I also have a
cut
lawnmower.
through that grass.
All right, hold on. I'm going to show you guys exactly why this is.
If you can equip lawnmower in your D&D campaign, then
if
go
you can,
for it.
Then. I'm going to show you exactly why I have a problem with this as soon as I figure out how paint works. All right, so okay, here we go. Add display capture. No, not display capture. Oh no, I'm ruining everything.
Stream is cut out for me, but that might just be me.
Capture window. Perfect. Okay. This is going to cover up all of us, I think. Can you see it on stream?
Mine's back now. Well, let me refresh it. It's struggling a lot. I can't even get the stream to pull up.
Okay.
Oh, there we go.
All right. Do you see my sweet MS Paint?
I see the MS Paint.
Okay. So, let me show you a real quick tutorial. Let's say this is a sword. Swing. Now, when you're using a sword, you want the bad guy. Okay, you're over here. You're this little X on this side of the sword. And you want the bad guy to be on this side of the sword. You see? You, weapon, bad guy. You, weapon, bad guy. Keep the weapon between you and the bad guy. Pretty simple concept, right?
Gotcha. Yeah.
Okay. So, if you're using a scythe, the blade is here, so you'd have bad guy, you'd have you, you'd have bad guy's stabby weapon, and then your weapon's clear the fuck over here doing what? Pulling the guy towards you? No.
Yep.
That's a fucking shit terrible weapon. The sharp side, you don't ever want the enemy between you and your weapon. Ever. That's a bad...
Well, historically they were used like halberds. They're just like you pull mounted people off their mounts and then beat them to death.
Historically, they were used by peasants that had no other form of weapon, and they were not used like this. In fact, I even... Okay, don't save. We don't need to see more of that. I'll show you. Oh, get rid of that. What you're thinking of is this, which is when you take the blade of a scythe and you remount it so it's facing upwards, like a fachard or a long bill of a similar style. This is just you take the scythe blade and then you put it in a way that's not asinine. You put it in a way that it will cut the people that aren't you. God, I hate when I see scythes used like super commonly as a trope weapon. Look, even if you were to swing it parallel, the blade is on the inside, so 9 times out of 10 you're going to hit with the outer side of the blade and minorly inconvenience whoever you're swinging at. One time you might hit them with the point, which would really suck for them, but then your weapon's back there behind them and they're stabbing you in the face with a sword. Like, scythes are bad weapons and they make me sad to see. Even peasants wouldn't use a scythe as a weapon like this. They would do this with it. They would take the blade off and they would tie that shit to the handle so it's pointing like this. You might add a fear component if someone really wanted to use one. Yeah, they're afraid of using this because if they pull too hard, they fucking disembowel themselves and don't hit anyone. No, if one of my players wanted to use this, I would ask them politely but firmly to leave my table.
Get out of here.
Fucking horseshit, scythe, weeb ass, fucking edgelord bullshit. Look, and I love an edgelord and I love weeb stuff, and I think scythes are fucking stupid bullshit weapons. It's bad enough D&D has a sickle, and I could at least understand that because at least the blade part of the sickle is towards the opponent. Fucking bullshit. But if you look at something like this, like a Fauchard or a Longbill or something that is a long slashing weapon, this is actually very similar to a glaive as well, which is already in the game. But this is the appropriate way to use that, and I would say, you know, this is obviously a reach slashing weapon. Now I'm watching an 8-minute video of someone scything grass. That's
soothing.
That's the only time that it is appropriate to use a scythe for anything besides decorations in a fucking Cracker Barrel. Sorry, you know, in one of my videos I am gonna find something to hate every time, and this time is a scythe. I was just very scared because I felt something on my foot. Chunk just gently put my foot in his mouth. Didn't bite me, just set my foot gently inside of his mouth. Thank you for that, son.
That's nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Chunk. Just so you know, I say son, Chunk is my dog. Just for anyone watching that is unfamiliar.
He's my...
Yeah, he is not actually my son. Oh god, Logan has become boxes. Oh, there he goes.
Yeah, I'm going to keep the stream up. That is...
Yeah. Chunk is, I wouldn't say an adorable corgi, he is a corgi. But yeah, are there any weapons that you guys wanted to talk about that we didn't see on here, that I didn't put on here? Ben did mention a weapon to me last night, and I went to put an image of it on here, and for some reason the image didn't download right, and then I forgot about it. It's, I can forget the name, it's an Indian weapon that's real dumb and bad, and I don't think would ever use. The Arumi, which is...
I have internet, it's just very poor.
An Arumi is a whip sword. Essentially, it's a long, thin piece of sheet metal that they would wrap up like a belt and put in a belt loop. Then you pull it out and you just kind of wiggle it at the enemy. It's dangerous because it's just like a very thin, sharp piece of sheet metal with a hilt that they would like whip around at people. That's another thing like the Kasarigama, where I think the amount of skill it would take to use the weapon efficiently far outweighs what you could actually do with it. But if you wanted to add something like that, very similar, well, the one I'm thinking of is way more intricate, but like if you're familiar with Soul Calibur and the character Ivy, she uses a whip sword that is a cooler version of that. But yeah, that's another weapon that I think is just so impractical to use. Especially against like metal armor, it's just not going to do anything. But let me see if I can find a picture I can pull up for you guys. So you can kind of see what I'm talking about. All these ones I see here actually have multiple ones on them, so they look more like a cat of nine tails or a flail. Okay, here's one. Oh god, that page is all in Hindi. I can't read that. I think it's in Hindi. I don't read Hindi, so I have no idea, but... Oh, that's a tiny picture. I need a picture that's big enough to display for you guys. Sorry, give me a second. an area of control kind of weapon. I mean, you're not really controlling anything, though, because you're just shit whipping this thin piece of metal around. It will keep people from getting closer to you, but it same way that, like, lighting a torch on fire and waving it around would. All these images are very tiny. What the fuck? That's... Someone made one in MS Paint. That's not really what I'm looking for. Okay, we're just gonna look at the Wikipedia. Yeah, exactly. It's less of like an effective weapon, just like don't be near me because this is incredibly dangerous for everyone involved. Okay, so cancel. Okay, so this thing here, it's like a hilt, and then it's got a bunch of thin, sharp pieces of metal that come off of it, and you just kind of shit whip this thing around.
Out of Nine Tails?
Well, except they're made of metal. It's not like it's a leather. I can't find like a better picture of one. Yes, I can. Like there's like this guy over here using one. You can barely see. Like this MS Paint guy using one, and it's just like a bunch of, or this one that's like a single. But yeah, it's just shit whipping a really thin piece of sheet metal around at people. I wouldn't really think that that's a good... Oh no, did Logan go... What did I do to Logan? Oh no, I made him tiny and...
Bye forever.
I don't know how I did this.
Oh, yeah, I can see my tiny hand over there.
What happened?
Oh. Well, which side of this is me?
I don't know what the fuck I did to your window, my friend.
Is it my right hand? It seems like my right hand.
Why is this... Did I... Oh no, what have I done?
Goodbye forever.
Control? There's Alt. Okay, for some reason cropped you very weird. I don't know how I cropped you.
Oh, hello. It's me. Hey, it's me. You're Logan.
Yeah, and then I had this cropped in a little bit so you'd be square like me. There we go. I sort of fixed you. I don't know why how that changed, but whatever. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties. But yeah, it's a dumb bad weapon.
Probably why it didn't catch on.
Yeah. But yeah, looking through these, I think all of these, sans the Scythe, really have some promise to add to your game. You know, some things you could add in, like we talked about, getting bonuses to hit against certain types of armor class, adding additional abilities, whether they be reactions or additional actions you can do with it, replacing a multi-attack with an additional attack or such. The ability to remove, to essentially cripple an opponent, whether it be their speed or their ability to hit by crushing whatever armor they're in. Some non-lethal options, whether it be at close or at range. Some high skill, kind of more unique weapons. You know, stuff for monks. Not scythes. And then, you know, modified versions of weapons. A Crowbill. What exactly is a Crowbill? A Crowbill looks like just a warhammer with a big blade on the back of it. Is that right? Looks sort of like a scythe, except instead of a cutting blade, it's got like a point to drive in, which is essentially like a warhammer or like the Lucerne. You know, it's similar to the Lucerne, to Lucy over here. except the Crowbill has a larger back blade. But this would essentially do the job against... yeah, I think that just about wraps up everything I wanted to cover, unless there's something else, Logan, you were thinking about.
No, I think we got it all.
Okay. So, yeah, we'll just quick review of, these are some kind of things you could add to your game to add a little more variance to what weapons you're using as opposed to just weapon dice. I'm a very big fan of, if you're running especially a primarily martial party, giving them additional abilities they can use to make them not feel useless to a spellcaster. If you're trying to capture somebody alive, your wizard with hold person or your druid with entangling vines, or they're gonna be the star of the show, and you want your fighter to be like, "Nah, I got this catch pole, and I'm gonna snag that bitch. I'm getting him." You want to give them something that they can.
Call me the Pound Master. Not like that.
No, not like that. Not anymore. Not since the accident. But yeah, I like the idea of adding some additional mechanics and twists to some existing weapons, besides just, oh, this weapon's heavy, or, oh, you can throw this weapon. You can throw any weapon, just if you really put your back into it. Yeah. Lucerne might be a little difficult. Those things are big, but I believe in you. Never forget that. But I think that's just going to about wrap us up for today. We have not quite decided what we're going to cover next week yet, because we don't until it's far too late for us to, do anything about it. We will be covering something different next week. I will try to decide on something still kind of simple. But if you have recommendations, suggestions, questions, comments, complaints, concerns, or you just want to chat, check us out on Discord, because we have a channel for Brewhaha, and if you want to throw something in there, we'll surely talk about it. Aside from that, if you're watching this on Twitch right now, I'll have all the stuff backed up on YouTube, so you can check it out in its glorious entirety. If you're watching this on YouTube, I somehow managed to get it up there finally, so you're welcome. And you can check it out live every Wednesday at usually 5:30 Central, sometimes a little bit later if life gets in the way, as it tends to do. But every Wednesday, 5:30 to 6 o'clock Central Time, and I'll post in Discord if times are weird. We'll be doing this live, as well as I stream typically Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Didn't this week, I had doctor stuff to do, but health's okay. I'll live another day, for better or for worse. And then occasionally I stream stuff on the weekends. Starting next week, I'm streaming Friday and probably all weekend, because Elden Ring is coming out. So if you want to check that out, come join me. Assuming my internet holds up. My upload speeds are terrible for some reason, and I gotta go call the internet people. I gotta go fist fight the internet people. So you know how that goes. All right. But I'm going to go ahead and call it here. Logan, do you have any plugs before we get out of here? Anything you want to talk about?
Total War Warhammer 3 comes out around 2 or 3 a.m. tonight. I won't be playing it then. I'll wait until the morning. But that's what I'll be doing for the next, foreseeable future. I might stream it if anyone wants to watch and I have internet to do it. But otherwise, that's just what I'm going to be doing. So you guys should all get that game and play it.
Great. I think it's also free on the Xbox Game Pass, so if you have it, check it out.
That's what I heard.
And then I might hop in with you for one of those little campaigns at some point.
Perfect.
All right. Aside from that, we're calling it an evening. Everyone have a wonderful one, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye, folks.
Goodbye, everybody.
All right. We're good. I don't know where this recording is saving to.